In O levels was simple, straightforward. In A level, it starts off from electrophiles. Electrophiles are the ones which are electron deficient species, meaning to say they are electron loving species. They can accept a pair of electron, which is why they are also called Lewis acid. Electrophiles will carry a positive charge and have, or you could say they have an empty orbital. In both of these cases, they will accept electrons. On the other hand, these are a few examples of electrophile: H plus, C3, CH3 plus, Cl plus, I plus, Br plus, NO2 plus, AlCl3, BCl3 are some examples of electrophiles. Right? Moving forward, nucleophile is a compound, you could say, or a species which is electron rich. They will carry a negative charge or will have a lone pair of electrons. Right? They have they are electron pair donors, which is why they are called Lewis bases. Electrophiles were electron loving. They are electron repelling. Definitely electron has a negative charge and they already have electrons, so they repel other electrons, right? These are a few examples of nucleophiles. All of these will have either a negative charge or will have a lone pair of electrons. These are a few key points. Only one lone pair of oxygen is involved in the reaction. And when I say that, I'm talking about specifically H2O. Whenever oxygen forms three covalent bonds, it carries a positive charge because of the fact that oxygen is in group 6 and can make two bonds. Nitrogen is in group 5, can make only three covalent bonds. But whenever it forms four covalent bonds, it will carry a positive charge, which is unstable. Same goes for oxygen. Whenever it makes more than two bonds, it will have a positive charge, which makes it unstable. Please understand that when halogens combine together, they form interhalogen molecule. One reason why these elements will have a positive negative charge respectively. Interhalogens would somewhat look like this. So if I were to break these bonds, right, the more electronegative element will have a negative charge. The less electronegative element will have a positive charge. We are only discussing the basics of it. So there are two different types of bond breakings. One is a homolytic fission, one is a heterolytic fission. Homolytic fission is symmetrical breaking. Heterolytic fission is sideways breaking. Right? So equal distribution of electrons would cause a homolytic fission. The electronegativity difference is 0 or less than 0.5. You need to understand that sunlight is a must for homolytic fission. Always free radicals are formed. Free radicals are species that have an odd or an unpaired single electron. And this is why, since it's a bond breaking process, it is endothermic and it is represented by half curly arrows and not the full arrows. Check out the shape of the half curly arrow. Right? Whenever it breaks, free radicals are formed. These are free radicals with a dot. They're extremely reactive, by the way. In heterolytic fission, there's an unequal distribution of electron and electronegativity difference is greater than 0.5. There is no sunlight required And you need to understand that always a cation and an anion are formed during the process. These are represented by full arrows. Check it off. Please understand the fact that this sideway breaking simply means that the more electronegative element will take away all the electron density and therefore will form a nucleophile, whereas the other one has to form an electrophile because it is electron deficient. Moving forward, there are three types of carbon skeleton. One is called the aliphatic chain. Aliphatic chain is basically a straight chain or a branched chain. You used to do these in O levels. Aromatic chain is the one where there is a symmetric ring and there is an alternate system of pi bond, meaning to say there is a ringed structure. What does this ring mean? That the, let's say, carbon carbon has a double bond, but it is there only for one specific incident. The next minute, this double bond shifts here to the next carbon, and as a result, this will have to move forward and this will have to move forward, and it continues moving forward, and therefore we represent this with a ring. Double bonds. In a double bond, the first bond is a sigma bond, the second is a pi bond. So it is the second bond or the pi bond which keeps rotating, and that is what's called the movement of pi bond. Right? There is a movement of the bond which is called a resonating bond or a charge resonance process. These are aromatic compounds. These are a part of the A2 course and not the AS course. Next comes in alicyclic chain. Different carbon cyclic chains, there are no alternate system of pi bonds. There's a difference. If you had a 3 carbon structure, that would make a triangle. A 4 carbon would make a rectangle or a square, and so on. Next comes in alkyl groups. Alkyl groups are basically represented by R, right? Let's say I have a CH4, which was methane, you know, from O levels. If I were to remove a hydrogen from it, it would become a methyl group. It is a reactive group. If it's benzene and there's a hydrogen removed, you could have called it either benzyl or phenyl. That's a special name. Right? The general formula of alkyl groups is CnH2n plus 1, and it is represented by R. Please understand that alkyl groups are electron donating groups. Next comes in a functional group. The chemically active part of the molecule is called a functional group. For example, if there's a carbon-carbon double bond, the double bond is the chemically active part, and that tells you that the double bond tells you that this belongs to the alkene functional group, right? And you know for a fact that it has a formula of CnH2n. From O levels, you know this. The OH part makes it alcohol. With OH group, there's always an OL attached at the end of an alcohol. For example, ethanol, 2 carbon atoms, ethanol, 3 carbon atoms, propanol, and so on. For example, if I had this compound in front of me, you need to understand that this is an alkyl halide or a halogenoalkane. ClBrI, if attached to a carbon, makes it a alkyl halide, has the general formula CnH2n plus 1. COOH was carboxylic acid, you know from O levels. There is an oic acid at the end of the name. 1 carbon atom, methanoic acid. 2 carbon atom, ethanoic acid. 3 carbon atom, propanoic acid, and so on. For these, if you were to check C double bond O, see, there's a carbon group on the left hand side and there's a carbon group on the right hand side, right? And there is a carbon double bond in between the two groups. You could simply say R C double bond O. I told you that alkyl chain could be represented by an R, right? So this C double bond O belongs to the ketonic functional group. Ketonic functional groups have the formula CO, and there is an one attached to it. For example, if I had 3 carbon atoms attached, I'm considering, let's say, 3 carbon atom would make it propanone, right? This is a functional group. This is a functional group that you do not study in O levels. This has been introduced in AS. Similarly, there is a functional group. There's an alkyl chain R. There is C double bond O, and next to C is CH. This part is called an aldehyde. The CHO group makes it an aldehyde, and there is an al attached. So let's say this was 2 carbon, that would make it ethanol. Next, let's say I have this part of the chain. C triple bond N is a functional group which was not mentioned in O levels. It's called nitrile. It is CN. Now it is also called cyanide in physical chemistry. Cyanides are basically poisons, right? NH2 is the amine functional group. It shows basic character because of the fact that it can donate its lone pair of electrons. Nitrogen can make 3 bonds. So this would be 1 bond, 2 bonds with hydrogen, and there's a lone pair always on nitrogen, which makes it basic. CONH2 group. This is the amide functional group, and the amide functional group somewhat could be represented by this. Moreover, there's an organic synthetic route that we have worked upon. There's, let's say, if it's a hydrocarbon and if I oxidize it to bring it to alcohol, if I further oxidize it, it will convert into an aldehyde or a ketone. Please understand that there is no moving forward from the ketone. There is no moving forward. But when aldehyde oxidized further would be carboxylic acid. In O levels, you used to study that alcohol when oxidized would convert into carboxylic acid. But actually, please understand that you eradicated one big step in here, which was the aldehyde. In O levels, you used to study that potassium magnet was a strong oxidizing agent. It was KMnO4. It had the color purple and it would turn colorless upon reaction. Another was potassium dichromate, and it would turn from orange to green. It was a weak oxidizing agent. Reducing agents, we have lithium aluminum hydride and sodium borohydride. Now, you need to understand this carefully. If I have an organic compound, I can call my C2H bond, or I could give it a valency of -1. Now, this is something that we have come up with. It does not actually exist, right? C2 heteroatom is basically any other atom apart from carbon and hydrogen. Let's say if it's carbon and oxygen or carbon or nitrogen, that would have a bond value or you could say an oxidation value of +1. So let's say, for example, I have this compound, an alcohol, right? And there is a carboxylic acid. Please calculate the number of carbon hydrogen bonds. And carbon hydrogen bonds are somewhat 5. multiply them by -1, that gives me a value of -5. Carbon oxygen bonds, carbon hetero would give you a value of +1. There is no value for oxygen and hydrogen bond. I'm applying KMnO4, which converts it into a carboxylic acid. Now calculate the carbon hydrogen bonds. -1 into 3. You need to understand that carbon is bonded twice with oxygen, and that gives you +2 value. If you check initially, your initial valency value was -4. Your final valency value is -1. Since you have moved from -1 to a greater value, which is you have moved from -4 to -1, which was a greater value, you could say that this is oxidation. Moving forward, types of structures, we have a condensed structure. Let's say heptane is C7, H16. You could have simply written as C 7 times and followed by hydrogen, right? You would have realized that this is CH3. Rest are all CH2. And finally would be CH3 again. Right? To work out a condensed formula, you pick this up, CH3, you put a dot, CH2. Now you need to understand that CH2 is, there are 5 CH2s, and then there is a CH3 again. Since there were 5 CH2s, you simply mention it off as 5. That's how you work on a condensed formula. Displayed formula is the type of formula that will show off every individual bond involved. Skeletal formula is where the students find it extremely tough to cope up with. Let's say, for example, I have this formula, butanol, in front of me. Now, for a skeletal formula, every carbon will be a dot. Next carbon is again a dot. Then comes OH attached to this carbon, which is the second. So I've attached OH here. Then comes another carbon, which is this one. And then there is CH3. Now, while drawing a skeletal formula, it is assumed that the bond which is not shown is a hydrogen. For example, this was a carbon. It had one bond. Carbon is in group 4, can make 4 bonds. So there are hydrogens, 3 hydrogens attached. It is naturally assumed. Similarly, there are 3 hydrogens attached here as well. This one has 1 bond, 2 bond. So naturally has 2 hydrogens involved. Right? This one had 1 hydrogen involved because it was already showing off 3 bonds. Next comes in carbocation. Carbocation are of 3 types. There's a primary carbocation, there's a secondary carbocation, there's a tertiary carbocation. Carbocation is one when a carbon carries a positive charge. Right? Let's say I have this example. You can work off a primary carbocation by the fact that there are 2 hydrogens involved, you could say, or when there's 1 alkyl group attached to it. When there are 2 alkyl groups attached to it, it is a secondary carbocation or a 2 degree. When there are 3 carbocations, it's called a tertiary carbocation. Now you need to understand that the primary one is the least stable because carbon here has a positive charge, and I told you before that alkyl will donate its electron density. So comparatively, tertiary has a larger electron density being donated to the positive cation, somewhat making that positive carbon stable as compared to all the others, right? And that is why it is more stable. right? In O levels, you used to study isomerism. Isomerism was defined as compounds which have the same molecular formula but different physical and chemical properties, right? And their phenomenon is called isomerism. There are two different types of isomerism. One is structural, the one that you used to do in O levels. There is stereoisomerism, which is introduced in the AS. Stereoisomerism is divided into two: geometrical and optical. Geometrical can further be broken down into two further types, which is cis and trans. Structural isomerism is defined as compounds which have the same molecular formula but different structural formula, right? Chain isomerism. In chain isomerism, your basic carbon skeleton is changed. For example, if you have a straight chain, you will convert it into a branch chain. Let's say you had C4H10. You introduced a branching that you shifted your CH2 to the other side, and that made it CH3. It was already CH2. This hydrogen added off made it CH3. Now you need to understand that the name also changes. 4 carbon atoms, singly bonded, belong to the alkane functional group and had the name butane. Now your straight chain of propane. Your second carbon atom has the methyl chain, so you will write that as 2-methyl propane. देख लेना, ठीक है? Moving forward, there is position isomerism. The position of the functional group is changed. Let's say I have butene. There are 4 carbon atoms bonded. I am shifting the double bond to the other carbon atom. Initially, this was but1ene, meaning to say the first carbon atom had the double bond. When I shifted it to the other side, this would become but2ene.